My name Nipsey Hussle. I'm from LA, Slauson and Crenshaw area, y'all know.
I was having this your boy YG 400.
Yo, what's poppin'? It's Kendrick Lamar shouting out undergroundhiphop.com.
It's Drakeo The Ruler and I'm chilling at the G Expo.
What's the deal? It's Shoreline Mafia.
Yeah.
You're hot new hip hop.
What's good? My name is Roddy Ricch. I'm with All Def Music.
Blueface, baby. Yeah, alright, man. I'm here with Fuse Media, man.
When it comes to hip-hop, Los Angeles and the surrounding areas have played a huge role in influencing the genre. Since the late 80s, West Coast hip-hop has been a major force in the genre. Early pioneers like Ice-T and NWA basically invented gangsta rap and put a spotlight on South Central LA and Compton. The 90s marked the golden era, with people like Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac all putting out classics and repping the West Coast hard. However, after Death Row fell apart, the 2000s experienced a notable slump marked by a decline in mainstream prominence and a shift in the industry's focus. Besides Game, hardly any big artists came out of LA or any of the surrounding areas for the majority of the decade. But in the 10s, the West Coast would bounce back stronger than ever with artists like Tyga, Kendrick Lamar, Schoolboy Q, and YG becoming stars, re-energizing the West Coast sound and LA culture. In the late 10s, artists like Drakeo The Ruler, 03 Greedo, and Shoreline Mafia would establish a new wave in LA that would get extremely popular, drawing attention from all across the country. So, in this video, we'll take a look at the resurrection of LA hip-hop. LA rap first began buzzing in the 80s with artists like Ice-T and NWA gaining popularity. In the 90s, California was running the game alongside New York. Ice Cube was in his prime as a solo artist. Dr. Dre dropped The Chronic and took G-Funk to the mainstream. Death Row became a powerhouse, building up a roster of stars, including names like Tupac, Snoop Dogg, Nate Dogg, Daz, and Corrupt. Other LA artists like MC8 and DJ Quick were also popping. Outside of gangster rap, the Far Side was seeing a lot of success, and the West Coast was on fire. But in the 2000s, all of this dried up, and LA was quiet.
Rack City, bitch. Rack City, bitch.
In 2005, Game broke the silence, becoming the new face of the West Coast. In the later years of the 2000s, a new batch of rappers began taking over, planting the roots for a new movement in LA. Tyga began building a buzz, leading to him signing with Young Money in 2008, where he would become a star. J-Rock, a rapper from Watts, began to heat up and see some of his songs take off around the time. And he was the first artist from a new label called Top Dog Entertainment that would be a huge part of the LA resurgence. Nipsey Hussle, a rapper coming out of the Slauson area in LA, was beginning to build an early buzz. He signed with Epic and released a mixtape called Bullets Ain't Got No Name, which took off in the city. Compton rapper YG dropped a song called Tooted and Booted that became a big hit around the LA party scene, bringing new attention to his name. In the early 10s, things really began to blow up. Nipsey Hussle and J-Rock both made the 2010 XXL freshman cover representing the West Coast. Tyler the Creator, a new 17-year-old LA rapper with a very unique style, blew up off a viral song called Yonkers and gained more and more momentum, with his early projects Goblin and Wolf stamping himself as a star and new talent in hip-hop with a crazy following. Alongside Tyler, Odd Future, the rap collective he had formed in the late 2000s, ended up blowing up as well, and as a result, people like Earl Sweatshirt and Frank Ocean saw their careers take off alongside him. Hobson, an artist from North LA, started seeing success with a very lyrical approach to rapping and heavy use of dissing and beef to generate attention. Compton rapper Kendrick Lamar became the second TDE artist to blow up, after he dropped his first 2 albums, Section 80 and Good Kid, Mad City. Both were extremely successful, especially Good Kid, Mad City, which told an amazing story, demonstrated the highest level of lyrical ability, and still produced mainstream hits like Swimming Pools and Poetic Justice, stamping Kendrick as a generational artist. Schoolboy Q was the 3rd TDE artist to reach star status, dropping huge songs like Collard Greens and Man of the Year, and his breakout album Oxymoron, his most successful project ever. Ab-Soul, the final member of this early TDE conglomerate, didn't blow up the way the other members did, but he released several solid projects, proving he was one of the top lyricists of this era. Meanwhile, YG was on fire with several smash hits. He was featured on a huge Yo Gotti record called Act Right, and followed this up with several hits of his own, including My Who Do You Love, Left Right, and Big and Back Being Bull. By the time he dropped his debut album, My Crazy Life, he was a solidified star. Nipsey Hussle dropped Crenshaw, The Marathon, and The Marathon Continues, continuing to build a strong following. Dom Kennedy, another artist from South Central, dropped Get Home Safely, From the West Side with Love, and From the West Side with Love 2, also becoming a local favorite. Tyga dropped Rack City, the biggest hit of his career, and the song took him to a new level of stardom. He also appeared on a ton of huge hits alongside Cash Money and other artists at the top of mainstream hip-hop. DJ Mustard produced Rack City, the majority of YG's big hits, and tons of other West Coast records and records across the country during this period, and played a huge role in shaping the sound. In addition to Mustard, Hit Boy was another extremely influential producer on the LA scene. In the early 10s, Hit was working with the biggest rappers in the game, like Kanye, Jay-Z, and Wayne, but he was also tapped in with the LA scene and worked with artists like Dom Kennedy, Nipsey Hussle, and Kendrick Lamar, producing big songs. Lastly, Ty Dolla $ign, an R&B singer from South Central, played a huge role in this era of LA rap, collaborating with most of the biggest LA rappers and contributing countless hooks and vocals for classic records.
Hanging out the window on my nuts out, klepto, big 40 bows and tell me who gon' really bust though.
In the mid-10s, the scene began to shift, and many of the previously mentioned rappers who were hot in the early 10s began to see their careers decline. But Kendrick and YG maintained their motion, continuing to drop big albums and hits. Meanwhile, the scene was shifting and tons of new rappers were coming up. Slim 400, another rapper from the same hood as YG, started buzzing on the scene with several big looks from YG, as well as popular songs of his own. Cause, an LA rapper with a more lyrical approach than most, found his name buzzing after signing to J. Cole's Dreamville imprint label and releasing his debut project, Cause and Effect. Westside Boogie, a rapper from Compton, began gaining a buzz, also bringing a very lyrical approach to his music, and this would eventually lead to him signing to Eminem's Shady Records. Long Beach rapper Vince Staples hit his stride, becoming one of the biggest artists coming out of the West Coast. Despite being around people like Earl Sweatshirt and Mac Miller for years, and releasing a couple mixtapes, he wasn't consistent until the mid-10s, when he dropped projects like Shine Cold Chain 2, Hell Can Wait, and Summertime 06, seeing big success with records like Nate, Blue Suede, and his breakout hit North North. OT Genesis, another artist from Long Beach, blew up off a song called Coco that went extremely viral, and followed it up with Cut It and Push It, 2 more hits. AD, a rapper from Compton, dropped a song called Juice that blew up in the city. Drakeo The Ruler, an artist from the Hundreds neighborhood in LA, began taking off, releasing several big early hits, bringing a unique rapping style to the scene. Draco's clique, the Stink Team, which included his brother Ralphie the Plug and several other artists, also began seeing shine as a result of Drakeo. RJ, an artist signed to DJ Mustard's 10 Suburbs label, had several bangers going crazy in LA. Bino Rito, an artist closely associated with Nipsey Hussle, was also coming up on the scene. Inglewood rapper Frosty the Snowman was blowing up with huge songs like You Dig and I'm Gone. He and another rapper called Almighty Suspect made an unofficial duo, collaborating frequently, dropping several big records during this time. Towards the end of this era, Shoreline Mafia, a local LA group, dropped breakout songs like Musty and Bottle Service that took them to the next level and established them as leaders of the new wave. 03 Greedo, a Watts rapper from the Jordan Down projects, was blowing up with a unique melodic style that didn't really sound like anyone else coming out of LA. Rucci and AZ Chike, two more artists out of Inglewood, began gaining a presence on the LA scene, dropping some early records that took off. G Perico came up on a different wave, and his rapping style, beat selection, and Jerry Curl all paid homage to OG LA gangster rap. Down in Long Beach, a rapper known as Stupid Young blew up off a song called Mando. DJ Mustard was still very present in the scene, but in addition to him, another LA producer known as Ron Ron played a big role in shaping the new wave, working with a lot of the up-and-coming rappers, including people like RJ, Frosty, Shoreline Mafia, and Greedo. Out of this new wave, Drakeo, Greedo, and Shoreline Mafia stood out the most, and they all ended up collaborating. In December of 2017, Drakeo dropped a project titled Cold Devil with 2 songs featuring Greedo, as well as a song with OGeezy, a Shoreline Mafia member. The entire Cold Devil mixtape had bangers and would take Drakeo to the next level of fame, but unfortunately, 3 months later, in March of 2018, he was booked and charged with a body, so he would have to spend the next 2.5 years fighting the case. Greedo also found himself in a similar situation. In late 2017, he dropped some of the biggest songs of his career, like Rude and Zonin', and at the end of the year, he signed a $1 million deal with Alamo. In 2018, he continued this momentum, and in February, he dropped Substance, his biggest song ever. Following this huge record, he dropped a project called The Wolf of Grave Street that also did well. But then, in April, Greedo was sentenced to 20 years for a case he had caught back in 2016, driving illegal substances across the country. He was given 3 months to get his affairs in order, during which he recorded tons of music, but in July, he had to turn himself in and begin his sentence.
I've been balling out, boy, it ain't nothing major. I can never switch, I can never be a hater.
In the late 10s, Greedo and Drakeo were behind bars, but the LA scene was still thriving. Shoreline Mafia were still at the top of their careers and leading the wave, releasing huge bangers like Nothing Major and Bands, and more artists continue coming up. One Take J, a rapper out of Compton, dropped a couple bangers and made his mark on the scene. Roddy Ricch, another Compton rapper, began taking off with huge songs like Die Young and Every Season, and a melodic southern flow similar to rappers like Future and Young Thug. Long Beach rapper Savi Third blew up off big songs like Batter Up and Another Day. Reason, a rapper from Carson, dropped some early projects gaining attention and was able to secure a deal with TDE, becoming her first new artist since 2013. And one of the most viral topics in all of hip-hop was Blueface, an artist coming out of Central LA. He began dropping music, initially playing around, but saw some early traction. He blew up off a song called Respect My Crippin' that went extremely viral on WorldStar. In late 2018, he signed a record deal with Cash Money West, and with the label push behind him, an older song he dropped called Tatiana started going extremely viral, becoming a Billboard hit, and Blueface became one of the hottest artists out. The success of Blueface helped to bring even more attention to LA. Basically, all the established artists on the scene were seeing peak success, and new ones continued emerging. Say So the Mac, a member of the Stink team, dropped a song called Halfway Hoes that blew up, establishing him as one of the more popular members. Blxst, another rapper from South Central, popped up on the scene with several popular records of his own, as well as collaborations with Bino Rito. In March of 2019, tragedy struck when Nipsey Hussle had his life taken in a situation that happened right outside his clothing store in Crenshaw. His passing was a huge deal in the city and temporarily brought everyone together to remember him. Following Nipsey's passing, rappers from his hood like Jay Stone, Pac-Man the Gunman, and Conrad from the Ab did their best to keep his name alive and continue the All Money In movement, and as a result, they saw huge jumps in their careers. Slightly before Nipsey passed, he and Roddy Ricch had dropped a song called Racks in the Middle, and after he passed, the song started going crazy and was certified platinum before the end of the year. Racks in the Middle was one of several big songs Roddy Ricch was on. He was on a run, and at the end of the year, he dropped his official debut album, Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial. The project was extremely successful, propelled by the massive hit single The Box. This song would dominate the #1 spot on Billboard for weeks, making Roddy one of the hottest artists in rap. In the early 20s, the LA rap scene remained hot. Blxst dropped a song called Chosen that blew up, becoming the biggest hit of his career. And this, alongside other records he was putting out and getting featured on at the time, established him as one of the hottest artists coming out of LA. Blxst, a new LA duo, popped up with several big records like Make Leave, Walking In, and Hate It Here. After 2 years of fighting his case, Drakeo finally beat the body and took a plea for a charge of conspiracy, which allowed him to return home in late 2020. And given that he was one of the pioneers of the new movement in LA, this was big news for the city. Down in Long Beach, a new artist called Rimble began blowing up on TikTok. He was similar to Drakeo, and the two would end up collaborating, leading to Rimble being invited to join the Sting team. An LA duo known as OTM blew up off a song called No Competition, and they also ended up joining the Sting team. Wally the Sensei, a rapper from Compton, began blowing up off songs like 03 Flow and Scandalous, embracing the melodic style heavily. Kalen, For Real, another rapper from Compton, also began seeing success with his music, embracing the wavy melodic sound as well. Shoreline Mafia ended up splitting up and going their separate ways, but Jeezy had a smooth transition into his career as a solo artist, continuing to drop big songs. Baby Stone Gorillas, a group from an area in LA known as the Jungles, dropped several songs that cracked 1 million views respectively and became hot on the LA scene. C-Mac, an artist from the 50s neighborhood in LA, began going extremely viral. He was probably one of the most entertaining figures to pop up during these years. He was more of a personality than a rapper and quickly began going viral off his hilarious interviews and dedication to 55th Street and Crippin'. Some of his rivals on the Hoover side were also beginning to see their careers take off. Treyway 6K and Jab 5 both had big songs establishing the Hoover presence on the LA music scene. In late 2021, tragedy struck again. In December, the news broke that Slim 400 had been gunned down in Inglewood. Then 2 weeks later, more tragedy followed after it was announced that Drakeo had had his life taken backstage at a show. After Drakeo was released in 2020, it hadn't taken long for him to get wrapped back up in beefs from before he went in. He found himself going back and forth on social media with rappers like Rucci, AZ Chike, and YG. In August, he dissed the entire city of Inglewood, dropping a song called Ingle Weird. In December, he was booked to perform at the Once Upon a Time in LA festival. YG, one of the rappers Drakeo was beefing with, was also performing, and their crews would end up running into each other backstage, leading to a fight breaking out. During the fight, someone would pull a blade and take Drakeo's life. Following his passing, the Sting team would fall into chaos, and both Rimble and OTM would end up getting kicked out. Meanwhile, the LA scene continued on, pushed forward by artists like Blxst, Wally the Sensei, Blxst, and Baby Stone Gorillas. The amount of new artists popping up slowed down, but Big Sad 1900 was one of the few who really began blowing up in the city. In 2023, after serving 5 years of his 20-year sentence, 03 Greedo was released into a halfway house and was able to return to making music, which was big for the city. This brings us to the present day. Since the LA scene really made its comeback in the early 10s, it's continued to produce all different types of rappers, leading to a diverse and thriving scene. Some of the biggest rappers of the decade have come from the city, and almost 40 years after the initial rise of the LA rap scene, Los Angeles remains an important part of hip-hop.